Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has once again raised tensions with Brussels, this time by threatening to block the EU's next multi-year budget unless billions in frozen funds are released. Speaking at the controversial Tusvanyos summer gathering, Orban lashed out at the EU's Ukraine policy, calling them globalist bureaucrats, and warned of an economic, quote, trade war. Joining us now is Professor András László Pap from Jutfos Loránd University to discuss the legal and political fallout of Orbán's latest confrontation. Professor,
good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, Professor. Before we get going, there's a short video that I'd like to share with the audience, and then I'll get your view on it.
The approval of the new 7-year budget requires unanimity, and until we get the remaining frozen funds, there won't be a new EU budget either. We will bring it home, and we will not make any concessions regarding our sovereignty.
In the new changing world order, the sole assurance of the security of Hungary is the membership of the EU and NATO. Those who keep vetoing and keep putting spokes into the wheels of the EU, all conspiring with hostile powers, risk the security of Hungary.
All right, so I suppose the fundamental question, Professor, is why is Viktor Orbán doing this?
Well, first of all, again, thank you for having me. So first of all, this is a sacred place for Orbán. This is a festival that always has an important angle in politicians talking, and Orbán is always there, has always been there, and this is where he would announce his visionary plans and about the future. This is where he first announced the whole model of illiberal democracy, and so this has always been an extremely important, if not the most important, speeches the Hungarian Orbán would deliver. This is a sacred place. This is in Transylvania, in Romania, in the heartland of ethnic Hungarians, diaspora Hungarians who found themselves in another country after the treaty, after the First World War, and this paves the way for also visions in foreign policy. But he would also be talking to the homeland.
Actually, let me just interrupt you for a second there, Professor. I will come back to this. But what particular significance is there when he talks to this relatively small group of people, the diaspora in Romania, and you say he does it regularly, it's where he makes his biggest speeches? Why? Why there? Why not at home?
As I said, this is a sacred place. So it's, of course, situated within the heart of the Hungarian ethnic diaspora, but he's surrounded by vassals and clientele. So everyone is there, all government members, all the cultural elite that supports the Orbán government and the regime is always there. So this is the friendliest political environment that he would be he could possibly orchestrate, and so this has been the model for quite some years. Even when he was not in power, this was again a very important, a crucial, sacred place, so to speak.
Understood.
What was interesting about this? Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, understood. Please continue with the point you were making about why he's digging his heels in now.
Well, actually, the
EU.
responses to his speech this year was that this was not what they have expected. They've always expected something powerful, something explosive, and he was basically repeating what he has been saying in the past couple of months. It was about the EU, Brussels being the home of the devil, and the budget being a war budget, and visions of a third world war, and this is how misguided Brussels and the EU and the Western world is with same-sex marriage and possibly extending an arm to Europe. Whereas, so there was nothing new here. It wasn't a particularly powerful speech in a sense that actually he hasn't used any of the radical rhetoric that he would always be using here. So one of the reasons why Tusványos has always been an important speech is he would be speaking in a very radical language. So this was most commentators were saying that, well, he basically summarized what he has been saying. So actually about the EU budget, so he said basically that he's going to veto the EU the 7-year budget, and we're definitely going to veto Ukraine's accession. Now, again, there was nothing particularly new about this, and he didn't really spend that much time on this. So we've heard a lot of similar threats and sort of political rhetorics before, and with sanctions against Russia and many other things, which at the end of the day Hungary did vote for or did not veto. I'm not saying that this is not it is impossible. But for example, but Peter Magyar was responding to this, said, well, by the time this happens, it will no longer be Orbán's, Orbán will no longer be in power. And of course, what was very important that the main opposition party that according to current polls is actually likely to bring an end to this decade and a half reign of Orbán's government.
Yes, but
Magyar has been.
But Professor, before we get to Peter Magyar, I just want to dwell on this. I mean, you can't afford not to take his words seriously because he could hold the 7-year budget up, could he not? And then, the EU is in limbo. All of the support for Ukraine, all of the developmental support for its member states, they're all held in abeyance until Viktor Orbán changes his mind or he's removed from power. So you can't afford not to take it seriously. What can be done to mitigate that risk?
Well, that's a very good question and very few good answers to this. I think what I was just trying to say that this was not the center of his speech this time. So again, there is a scenario that he will, at the end of the day, again, stick to the anti-Ukraine rhetoric because that's very important. And concessions may actually be happening. I'm not saying that, this is clear from this. What I think is quite telling that he said that there's absolutely no way, he said, that Hungary would vote for the budget unless the suspended EU funds that have been suspended because of the rule of law procedures and the rule of law concerns are now being unfrozen. Now, I think that is practically impossible. I mean, given the whole monitoring mechanisms and basically all the fora have reaffirmed that Hungary has not done anything or any of the required steps to overcome the concerns that have been raised regarding the various rule of law questions. So I think that's procedurally and politically out of the question that the EU would actually. I mean, I would be very surprised if the Commission and the Parliament would just reiterate from this position.
Is there some flexibility available to the European Union to negotiate on perhaps some related issues just to get Orbán's signature on the budget?
Well, I'm not a political analyst. There could be, of course, legal procedures are always available to stop the procedure, say that while everything is okay, the rule of law concerns are no longer valid, and it's highly unlikely that it would happen, especially given the political situation in Hungary, where there is actually a very powerful opposition force that, according to current polls, is likely to overtake governance, and this party will have a very different approach to these issues and how negotiations should be going with the EU. I would find it extremely surprising if given this particular political condition, the EU would go against the many years of firmly held views on what Hungary should be doing, what the Hungarian government should be and should not be doing in regards of rule of law.
How is Orbán's stance being felt on the streets in Budapest and other cities?
Well, it's again very difficult to say. What Orban has mentioned was said at this speech today that, well, according to current polls and all that, FIDESZ is not only likely to win, but is likely to again have a very convincing and strong majority. This is not what any of the polls are saying. It's very difficult to say what the street is. We see demonstrations, we see political support for Magyar's party. But again, the elections will be decided by rural voters and mostly in the individual districts. So not the party votes, but for members, and that's very difficult to predict because due to the gerrymandering that has been introduced into the electoral system, it has been tailored to meet or to translate political preferences of rural, older, less educated voters who would be were overwhelmingly FIDESZ supporters to mandates in a way that is preferential towards Orbán's party. But again, this can change. Magyar has focused a very...
Yes, I want to go in the last couple of minutes that we have, Professor. I want to focus on Peter Magyar. Now, you alluded to the fact that he's leading in the polls, but also that geographically there are other considerations which make it less clear. What's his pro-EU stance look like, and how popular is he for that stance?
Well, today, and it was very strategically planned, he basically started his speech moments or minutes after Orbán has finished. He had made some reflections on Orbán's speech. It was basically, according to analysts, the most firmly pro-EU speech he has ever made. He's always been pro-European. That has always been part of his image, but never so clearly making a statement that his government or the government or his party's government, he actually never clearly, he never says that he will be the next prime minister. He will say that he will always talk about the next prime minister. So this has been the most pro-EU, pro-NATO speech, saying that we have to end what Orbán recalled as a peacock dance between the East and West, and Hungary's place is not with Russia, is not with the East, it is with the EU and it is with NATO. He said, which is very interesting, he said the new prime minister, or his party's prime minister's first trip will be to Warsaw, the second to Vienna, so to reinvigorate the Visegrad cooperation. This is something that can lobby, that can make its interest represented in, for example, budget talks and things like that. And then, sorry about this. And then Vienna, and then Brussels. It should be the third. Sorry about this.
Understood.
What was interesting in his speech, that besides being unconditionally pro-European, he said that, well, his party is not only against the swift inclusion of Ukraine or in the European Union, but also he said that, well, in its current form, also the 7-year budget is not something that they would be supporting. There should be long negotiations.
Understood. Unfortunately, Professor, we're going to have to end it there, but thank you so much for your analysis. And
thank you so much.
Do come and see us again soon. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talk. Stay tuned, though, lots more coming up. Goodbye.